Hey guys, my name is Mikhail and welcome to my channel. On this channel, I will share the stuff that interests me, and realistically, it can take any shape and form. But for now, my passion lies in making podcasts, a dream that I had for a long time. This episode is special, not only because it's a first episode, but also because I have one of my best friends as a first guest. We talked about a very challenging period of his life when being optimistic and open minded has been very important. I hope his story and wisdom will help many of you faced with a challenge in your own life deal with that adversity with ease. As it is a pilot episode, I know it's not going to be perfect, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the content, some of your reflections on the ideas discussed, as well as any ideas and suggestions for any future content on this channel. And without further ado, let's get started. Enjoy. Cool. So, Johnny,
Mike,
welcome.
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
My honor.
It's been a long time coming, but I'm excited to start. And I'm excited to have you here as a first guest as well.
Wow.
So-
Huge honor. Huge honor.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's a bit cold and gray in London today, but being here with you, it's recording this podcast.
Oh.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
Well, we have a lot of interesting stuff I want to talk about. And I mean, for many of the people who might watch this video, you are just a random dude that lives his own life, but has nonetheless a lot of exciting stuff to share. So that's why actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. And yeah, I guess we can start with just a short introduction of yourself. Yeah, if you were to introduce yourself to someone who has no clue who you are, how would you go about that?
Oh man. Jeez, feels like a networking event again, all over again, man. Well, sorry, I guess I'll start with if I was with you, I would start with how I met you. Really,
Oh yeah,
it was
sure.
we can start there. It's pretty odd if you think about it. Like I'm from China. You're from Russia, and for some weird reason in this universe, we decided to both head to a school in the middle of Yorkshire together. Um, Great school, by the way. It was one of the best decisions I went there because I met you and many other great friends I still keep in touch today. And yeah, so that's how we met in at school, and then ever since we both moved down to London. I think Mike went for the more conventional route of going to university, whereas I'm sure we'll dig into more details later. But I went down like a less conventional route at the time, called degree apprenticeship, where I ended up working at a bank for like 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days I studied computer science. I studied software engineering, by the way, and then I just graduated last July, and now working full time as a software engineer at the same bank.
Would you say the like the time we met, the way we interacted, the way our relationship was formed back then, and the way we interact now, has it changed?
I think so, because like what year did we meet? Oh gosh, like 2016?
Yeah,
Jeez, that's
almost 10 years.
almost 10 years. Happy almost 10 years anniversary. um like we were all kids back then, right? Like what we were, I think, in year 11,
Yeah.
which is like grade 10 for all the future American audiences that I'm sure Mike is gonna have. Um, like we were all kids back then, and all the stuff all our conversations were what do we like we were not talking about like work or all this like adult life stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're still like super young, but like back at school, we were like babies. It's we were talking, what do you call it? We were talking about like we were complaining about like the canteen lunch food, and
Oh yeah.
about how much homework we're getting. But looking back, it was fun. It was fun. I think like that's one of the key things, right? Like when you're there, when you're going through it. I guess even right now, when we're going through whatever we're going through right now in our separate lives in both very different jobs, it can feel a bit painful. It can feel a bit boring. But in 5 years, in 10 years, when we look back, this is gonna be the good old days.
Distant memory.
Exactly.
No, I think especially at the times where you're like going through difficult stuff and making some decisions that you're not sure whether they're right or wrong, it's good to have
Uh-huh.
someone who's been with you for a long time to say, "Hey, mate, I remember the decisions you made before, and I remember how strong were you.
Mm.
So I have no doubt that you will make the right decision." Like that's very powerful.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we've both changed a lot since school, I feel. And in a good way, right? You don't necessarily want to still be the same, like in the same mental state or mental age as as when you were at
No,
school. So I'm glad. I'm grateful for the memories that we had back at school, and those were some of the best memories. And but I'm glad I'm very proud of where we both are right now.
speaking of school,
Mm.
um, I guess it would be interesting for the audience to know what did you study? Did you have any specific preference in terms of subjects? Would you have always considered yourself to be a more STEM inclined person, or was there a period of time where you were like, I wish I did a bit more of business studies? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe we can talk about that for a little.
that's a good question, man. It's I guess like when we were both doing our GCSEs, we had to do a little bit of everything. And I've always enjoyed like physics and maths a bit more um compared to like English or some of the other subjects. Although I did really enjoy history.
Hmm.
I think that was one of the subjects that I did not expect to enjoy so much, and it was great. Like kind of going from doing math equations to writing history essays that were that was surprisingly fun. And yeah, it's a shame I couldn't like take more subjects at A levels. I don't think I would have had the mental capacity to do that, but I think, you know, all in all, it was like I knew that I wanted to do something engineering related. Um, like a good combination between math and physics. But that said, I did very much enjoy, like, I wouldn't say I hated, like, English and history, and truth be told, we had some great teachers teaching those subjects at school, so they definitely made it a lot more enjoyable. And yeah, and I think I'm grateful for it. Grateful that we did like some form of it when we were young, even though at the time, we might have not enjoyed it as much. um
Yeah.
but yeah, like when A levels came around, it was kind of time to like focus in on what you want to do when you get to university, and all these different pressures, which kind of forced us and the other students into having to pick like those subjects which facilitated the degree you wanted to do.
Yeah.
um yeah, how about you, man? Like, would you have dabbled in more physics and maths if you had the time and energy to do more?
I mean, I'd say at some point, I did consider an engineering route, but from a more architecture perspective, because I've always had the creative side in me in some shape and form, but I just wasn't sure what's the best way to kind of realize it and turn it into some sort of career or job. So yeah, I used to do lots of creative stuff since I was young.
Oh
But
no,
then
where did those creative stuff go?
they peaked at gym and dance,
Oh man,
which
that's what happens, kids. When you finish school, it's all the creative stuff goes out the window.
no, I try to keep up to it. But hey, I still have the creative side. It's just I think the ability to leverage that is not as easily accessible for me at this point in time. But as we are in a day and age where you can use media and you can use all that stuff, I'm trying to get back into it because I still have that inside me. But
Yeah.
just coming back to your question, um, I think this kind of architecture engineering route has been on my mind for quite some time. But I think what did change the scene and kind of the direction that I wanted to go in was the I think the business studies lesson that I had the first time that I came into the UK, because I've always been in this kind of problem solving mindset, regardless of whatever I was doing in my life. be that kind of solving a math problem or solving some more kind of domestic problem like where do I buy stuff so it's cheaper, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always about problem solving for me, fortunately and unfortunately. Um, but then when the business thing element came into the context, reading those case studies in the textbooks and then kind of reading stories about how different brands did different things and managed to like elevate and build up empires that would kind of leave a long lasting legacy. To me, that seemed like super cool. And I've started to imagine myself running a form of business in the future. Well, back then, and we'll see how it work out in the future. But obviously, for me as a 14-year-old, that was a big thing. And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm interested in like engineering architecture just because I've seen it and it looks very cool. But now I know business and I've done business for like a year of GCSEs. Now I know so much more about business versus architecture that it seems like my passion has switched into something else. Although the core principles of me kind of enjoying stuff, creativity and problem solving, kind of stayed there. And then economics came around as well. And then I was like, okay, cool, you sold me.
Mm,
um, that was the decisive point. And then at that point, I was just like, I want to do something that is related to understanding the economics and also leveraging the kind of the business acumen that you have
mm,
in that scene. So yeah, I mean, honestly, to this day, the STEM the STEM kind of world to a certain degree is attractive to me, but then at some point I'm just like, there's too many numbers, guys. I need some sort of way to like hypothesize, to create a narrative, because I'm in love with creating stories and communicating people a specific idea,
mm.
but I also want this idea to be underpinned by a lot of facts and stats and making sure that it's like as bulletproof as possible.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I think it's yeah, I do see that a lot in the almost 10 years I've known you. Like back in school, you would always be like, you know, doing gym and dance, and telling stories through dance. And obviously you did a bit of rapping as well.
Oh.
Uh, you have to pay for the premium package to get access to that.
I'll make sure this video is archived.
And I feel like you've always been a storyteller, and now to trying your hand at starting a podcast as well. This is I feel like nothing's like that idea of storytelling and your skills in doing that has stayed with you. And I think no, I think it's great. Like even though we might not be doing dancing and singing anymore, at least it's we're still we're still expressing yourself in a creative way through other forms like doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And also to your point about going down STEM versus business, I feel like at its core we both are interested in solving problems. I think
Yeah.
that's what both of our kind of studies and now careers are doing. It's just we're solving problems in different ways. Like yours is more business problems, which perhaps takes a bit more of like as you mentioned, creating a narrative, being creative in that front. Mine is a
Yeah.
bit more like software engineering problems, having to be creative in optimizing different codes and things like that. So I think at its core, we're actually a lot more similar than we are different. And and yeah, I think like being able to critically think and creatively solve problems are both things that we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I guess one of the reasons we are kind of still in touch a lot, because yeah, I do respect. I mean, and it doesn't really matter what you do or what your kind of area of interest in, but what I do respect a lot in people is this kind of this mentality of, okay, I'm going through something in life. I don't necessarily have an answer, and you don't need to have an answer now, but you need to be well, or try to be in the mindset where like, okay, how can I get to some sort of an answer? Doesn't mean that you'll solve it tomorrow. Doesn't mean you'll solve it next week. But you're moving towards a point in the future, and I can see that along you as well. Hence, yeah, I'm actually very admire like the passion that you put into a lot of stuff that you do. So,
No, I
yeah,
appreciate it, man. Like same to you as well. Like I think throughout throughout time in school and university and now working, I'm glad that we've stayed in touch, and we might not live as close to each other anymore as when we were at school, but we still like meet up quite often,
yeah,
and I think we both have our struggles, experience different struggles from school to university to now working, and it's nice to like share that with each other and have like a form of kind of like releasing the stress and the pressure. And you remind me all the time about like when I tell you about maybe something happening at work, and you always remind me of like how you can draw similarities to how we've gone through a similar problem back at school, and things like that. So I think it's almost I'm almost like grateful that we are able to struggle, I guess, like
yeah. No, that's a
have
good way to put it. Yeah,
have the experiences which allow us to go through struggles and hopefully come out the other side as better human beings. And being just having you as a reminder of like, yeah, back at university, we've gone through COVID together. Like that was like a real black swan event. And
yeah,
that was tough. That was some tough times. I'm sure we could talk a bit more about that. There's plenty of to unwrap there, and it's nice. It's nice to. I mean, I know you have your aspirations of traveling the world, and I feel like I'll really miss you when you depart, and I'm not able to grab a coffee with you over lunchtime because our offices are actually really close as well. So
yeah,
it's actually great that I just meet Mike for coffee whenever I want.
yeah. No, I mean, hey, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. It's we'll keep in touch, and yeah. But obviously, this all sounds like a finishing of the podcast, but we just started. So,
Yes.
coming back to the school days.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning, okay, so I think at this point, the viewers pretty much understand that STEM has kind of been decided for yourself as the area you want to go into deeper. Um, Tell me about your experience with like A levels. What did you think of kind of doing A levels as a way to measure your knowledge, and then also as a way to measure how capable you are to do something in the future? Let's say get into university, because spoiler alert, or kind of in the foresight, obviously you didn't get into university right away.
Mm.
You took a gap year, so
Yeah.
if you can just like talk through that period with as much detail as you want, because I feel like a lot of people who might be watching this video, they might be going through the same thing, and it will be useful for them to know what does it feel like for someone who didn't necessarily manage to get to university or achieve something in the conventional way,
Mm.
but still, with all the kind of odds, managed to get to a very nice position to be at, which is getting into a university on a quite challenging degree, and then getting the job at a kind of a very top financial institution.
Yeah. It's like, and just to be transparent, like I missed my offers the first time around coming out of year 13, which felt like the end of the world at that point. As I'm sure we're both quite familiar. Like when you're at school, when you're going through your A levels, it feels like that was like that was all of your life.
That was it. Yeah.
That was it. 18 years of life, 18 years of school built up to this exam. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like A levels, like or education in general, like having the privilege of being able to learn. For me, it was like math and physics and computer science. That was it was great, and being able to learn from good teachers as well. It was even better. And I feel like knowledge, it's a great thing to have, but being tested on it, I wouldn't necessarily say I agree with how we're currently like testing testing students using standard examination. Um, feel like it's very much like a way of like testing how much you remember,
Mm.
which in the age of the internet and more recently artificial intelligence is a bit scary that our way of standardized testing hasn't changed that much over the past 100 years. Um, so all in all, like when it was almost like a blessing in disguise looking back when I missed my offers by a few grades because it allowed me to actually take some time off and like take a gap year where I interned at like a small tech company and actually got a feel of how the working world really worked and seeing that it wasn't as much about being able to remember a textbook and regurgitate knowledge as much as it was being able to work with people. Um, so so looking back, like A levels was hard. Like don't get me wrong, I was struggling through A
Oh yeah.
levels. Lots of hours studying together. I'm sure you remember, but I'm grateful that I gone through it. And I wouldn't have gone back and changed the thing. I feel like everything happens for a reason. So like the fact that I had to take a gap year to realize how much I actually enjoyed working and like how little I guess school really reflected real life, like working life, was a good was a blessing in disguise. I feel like, um,
Yeah.
and obviously it allowed me to um, kind of find out a bit more about the other opportunities out there. So over my gap year, I did reapply to university. Initially, I applied for mechanical engineering in year 13, and then after working at the tech startup over my gap year, I really fell in love with like software engineering,
Mm.
um, and the idea of being able to just like write code on a on a Word document, and that will one day turn into an application that people use on their smartphones is just fascinating to me and something I enjoy
Mm.
doing to this day. Um, hence why it is my career. Uh, so I did reapply to university for computer science in my gap year, but at the same time I also discovered degree apprenticeships, which in full honesty was originally introduced to me when we were back in school. Actually,
Yeah.
we had with some great like extracurricular programs and like outreach events at school, and I remember I think it was in year 13 or year 12 they
Could
our
have been
teachers
year
had
12.
like
Yeah.
our teachers had we were made to go to these like mandatory morning talks from like external people.
Yeah.
And one of those talks were a bunch of like degree apprentices from I think Nestle doing like manufacturing engineering, and they were describing how
Yeah.
they would go to university part time and then study part time and then come out with a degree, a fully paid for degree, and also hopefully a job at the end as well. And I was like, that sounds too good to be true. Sounds like a no brainer. But at that time we were all like focused on um, getting good A level grades and going down the conventional path of university. That I didn't really spend too much time to research into it. But during my gap year, when I had a bit more time, after work, I looked back into it. We're still applying through like UCAS and the conventional university route, and I found a few different companies that were doing degree apprenticeships in software engineering, and threw in a few applications, did a few interview rounds, found them to be like I actually really enjoyed the interview because during interviews it was more like talking to a human being and less
Yeah.
about like writing a personal statement and making sure that you fit them in like what like 1,000 characters or some there was like a arbitrary word limit or character limit.
Like
We were
6,000 or something.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Like it was actually free flowing conversation with like interviewers at the company, and they were genuinely interested in finding out what I wanted to do. I felt that was like a breath of fresh air, and luckily, I managed to get an offer from from the company I'm still working at today. So yeah, so that was back in 2020 after my gap year. So That's
The COVID times.
yeah, it was like, it was interesting now looking back, like from going through like probably one of the lowest point of my life. Um, when we opened our results in August 2019 to like finding out that I have to reapply university next year, um to like, well, because I missed my offers, to then ending up to one of the highest point of my life when I managed to get an offer on my degree apprenticeship program. That was, looking back, I think I was really stressed at that point when we on results day 2019. But now it's like, looking back, it was just like a small blip in the
Yeah.
in the bigger timeline. So yeah,
They
I guess
say,
that's like the general advice. When you're going through some stuff in your life, like, it might seem like the end of the world when you're going through it, but give it a year or two. When you look back, it's you'll be laughing at yourself for worrying that much or stressing that much in the first place, because all the problems will become like, will seem minuscule to the
yeah.
to the new problems that you face. Hopefully those new problems will become small ones in the future as well.
There's always chapter two. No, I agree. And I wanted to emphasize that sometimes you have to take a step back to take two steps forward. It's going to sound very cliche. I'm sorry, guys, but I have to say it because I do agree with what Johnny's saying. And I did experience it myself as well, during uni, when trying to find a job during COVID was like almost mission impossible. And especially when you're on a visa and you're kind of worried about stuff like that. But then I think, since you mentioned that lowest point in your life, for me, that kind of second year of uni, especially, was, and we have a ghost in our room as well. Nice. um, so yeah, having the, sorry, in the second year of uni, having that lack of visibility and certainty about, oh, what am I going to do after uni? Because like it's COVID, when is it going to end, etc. Um, it seemed like I'm taking a very big hit, but then I just kind of, I didn't just let it go, but I went with the flow and I focused on things that I can do and I can take control of, which then led me to build some sort of base and foundation to then potentially land, well, eventually land a job, after I graduated. And I was so worrying about that throughout my uni. But then I just had to kind of wait out for the perfect moment. And then, yeah, they came in knocking on the door. So,
Yeah, I remember when I came to visit you in your old flat in London when you were still going to university, uh in I think it was like your second year or third year, and there was this period where I just came I think every now and then, and you were always so stressed, man. It was so sad to watch.
I wasn't looking as handsome, by the way, if you can say so.
I was so worried because I think there was just so much work that you had to submit, like essays, exams, and then you were talking about how you applied to like so many internships, got so many rejections, but had to keep on going. Like that was and I think when you're going through it, you feel like the world is against you, and I remember I did try to like help out and like
Cheer up.
cheer you up and explain that these problems going forward in a few years will just be a distant memory. But like it's kind of like when you're going through it, it's hard to like listen. You're getting good advice, but it's hard to listen to them because it does not solve your immediate problem, right? Like
As a
uh,
problem solvers, this is what we want.
yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, I feel like sometimes you just have to listen to your own advice, and I know it's hard, like I remember just telling you like, oh, just keep applying, I'm sure you'll get one, get a job, um get an internship, and it's from my perspective, it's easier said than done, right? Because you're still the one that has to put in the effort, that
Yeah.
has to like put in the work to go through it. um but I feel like there's this like, I'm not sure if you feel the same, but like going through school and university and now work, I feel like, especially at school, there's this very set timeline of like, okay, like you do your GCSEs, you do your A levels, get into a good university, which will mean get into a good job, which mean having a good career. So it's like very, very set in stone almost.
Definitive.
Whereas
Yeah.
definitive, like whereas I feel like in reality, there is nothing set in stone. It's like someone that takes an extra year or two to decide what they want to do at university, or take an extra year or two to get into the career that they want, that they truly love. I feel like there is no rush, right? There is no rush of like if you don't get into university, if you don't succeed in you getting a job the first time, that's fine. It's okay that you might spend 1 or 2 years figuring things out. Whereas I remember at school, it was there's also always this pressure of like, oh, like you have to pick your A levels by this date. You have to pick what you're going to do at university, what university you want to go to by this deadline. Um, but at the time, like you're moving so fast that you don't really get time to ask yourself like, is this really what I want to do? Is this really the subjects I want to do? Is this really the course I want to do at university? Because like university is a big commitment, right? It's like
Yeah.
3 years of your life where you're going to like learn about a subject that you want to learn about, hopefully for every day of your life, and go through countless hours of lectures, seminars, um like practicals as well, labs. So you really, I guess, like it for me. I'm almost kind of glad that I took like a year out just to really find out what I wanted to do.
Think it through.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if you felt the same, like pressure when you were like picking your course at uni.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say yes, but the bit that I was stressing most about for sure was whether I'm choosing the right unis. Um, because at the end of the day, like I think for me, my journey in the UK has always been about getting the education, and getting into university was like the pinnacle of um, all of the stuff that I was doing before this. So all the tests, all the GCSEs, all the everything that I've done is pretty much to get to the best uni possible. But then that concept of best uni possible started to slightly dilute as well as I was getting closer to the actual process of getting into the university. Um, and I guess for me, the decision I needed to make was whether I want to commit to like very competitive and like super like demanding universities like Imperial and Oxford, Oxbridge, or whatever, or if I want to, well, kind of lower down my expectations. I'm not saying to completely disregard
Mm-hmm.
the ambition, but be more realistic. Because for my parents, to be very transparent, it's more like, yeah, just like Oxford, go for Cambridge. It's always like you should always go for the best, which is a very fair and a very respectable position kind of to have. But also it's like, how do I effectively reach the result that I want? And my eventual result was getting into university to the degree that I enjoy. So the pressure for me was like, okay, so there's Oxford that offers this program that I'm kind of interested in, but then I need to follow this rigorous process to get there. Do I really want to study at Oxford, or do I just want to study this subject? So for me, that discussion and that thought process in my head was the biggest challenge and something that gave me a lot of anxiety. Um, but at the end of the day, don't regret my decision. So I feel like I pretty much knew the field that I wanted to go in. I roughly knew what kind of university and what kind of course they want to study, because there's also a difference between like just a campus uni and then a uni that is in the city. So for me, it wasn't really a determining factor. Like I wasn't looking for something that had incredible facilities and etc. I just wanted to be closer to London because that's where I would envisage myself to be working in the future. And that kind of narrowed down my list a bit. And then, yeah, in terms of subjects, for me, there wasn't really a lot of like, oh, do I want to do business management or do I want to do finance or whatever? Pretty much knew I just want to keep it as general as possible so that I can have opportunities to decide what's like speciality do I want to do when I'm actually at the university. Um, because
So
I think,
you had like a pretty good idea. You wanted to do some like business economics
yeah,
degree
it had to be,
when you were at school as well.
yeah, it had to be econ and business, um, preferably at an equal portion, just because I was pretty certain that I wouldn't want either end. I wouldn't want to be 100% econ because, with all due respect to people who do study 100% econ, for me that's just too nerdy. But also, just doing pure business, it like the lack of structure would really kind of make my problem solving mindset go crazy because I want to be able to grip on some sort of stats, some sort of formula, some sort of framework. So yeah, I would say, yeah, it's more about like how do I optimize my decision based on if I can make it,
Hmm.
but also if I will like it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the thing is there is no standard formula about that goes into any of this, right? It's
yeah,
like I thought there certainly were a standard formula of okay, get into a good university, good job, good career, good life. But that's not necessarily the case, right? I think people put a lot of artificial pressure on themselves that so and so told me, whether that's a parent or friend, family, like okay, like you must get into this school, then go to this university, then go to this company. I feel like that's not necessarily the right formula for a happy life, because at the end of the day there is I don't think there is a set formula. um I think in 20 years we will not be doing the same things that we are doing now, because we would have changed as human beings, and I might not find like engineering as interesting as I do right now, and you might not find business as interesting as you do right now. So I feel like it's a dangerous road to put that much pressure onto yourself to kind of feel like something is the be all and end all of things that you want, whether that's to like get into a good university to please your parents, or getting to a good job to please somebody else. I feel like you have to do things because you want to do them, and not because someone else has put it on a pedestal, or you have put it on a put something else something on a pedestal. Because when you actually get there, um, it might be disappointing, and what you worked for your whole life might not just might be not what you expect
yeah,
it to be. So I feel like it's a dangerous road, and it's one that I've fallen victim to many times.
mm,
Um, and I'm sure will probably fall victim to many times in the future as well. But yeah, it's I feel like it's it's hard to it's hard. I mean, especially given we're in our early 20s, it's hard to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. So even I mean, it's even harder if you're like still at school.
yeah,
So don't focus too much about what's am I making the right choice? That's at least my view. Don't focus too much on like, oh, this choice, am I making the right choice that will determine the next like 5, 6, 7, 10 years of my life. um you know, Obviously don't make stupid choices. Um, but if you're unclear about how stuff is going to pan out over the next few years, don't stress too much about it. It's like I'm always under the impression that like I can make the wrong career choice for the next 10 years of my life, and I'll still be really young. Like,
yeah,
average life expectancy in the UK is like 70 something years old. So even like in 10 years, I'll be 30 in my 30s, and that's still not even the halfway point, right?
yeah,
If you think about it that way, so you got a lot of time to try out different things, and some things might not work out. Like people might think that we have the ideal life right now. We have stable jobs. We live in a good city, a stable country. um But to us that might not like I'm incredibly grateful for that. But if your job or your living environment does not make you happy, I feel like there's no point of like keeping up that image of yeah, I'm successful just to remain unhappy. It's completely fine. I feel like it's completely fine if you um spend the next few years, just exploring the world, exploring different industries, um and and then if things don't work out, you can come back to where you are. Um because at the end of the day, you only live once. So if you don't do it now, then there's you know you kind of always think that, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next year. Um, you still gotta live the life that you want, right? Not because of somebody else having the image of the life that you want, that you should live. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not too stressed about like making the wrong like decisions, making wrong career decisions now. Um, like maybe when I'm like 40, 50, 60, then I might be a bit more careful. Like with modern medicine, maybe hopefully we'll live to 100. But yeah, I think there is no rush, guys. There is no rush. It's like I'm incredibly grateful for the life that I have right now, and and I feel like I'm really happy, genuinely really happy, not because like somebody else thinks that I'm doing the right things, but I feel like I'm healthy. I have my great friends around me. My family's healthy, um, and I have a good job that in something I'm genuinely really passionate about. So I'm happy. I'm happy, and feel like I hope what will I be doing the same thing in 20, 30 years? Who knows? But I'm not too stressed about that. And yeah, so yeah, like if you're like going through life and you're uncertain right now, just don't I was like, don't stress too much about it. You gotta adventure out and do things for yourself, not for others from time to time.
Yeah, I do enjoy I particularly enjoy time spending with Johnny because I think
Thanks, man. I enjoy
my
spending time with you as well.
no, let me finish the thought. I particularly enjoy spending time with you because I feel like sometimes I do get focused more on the kind of the how to's and like rights or wrongs, and so being very kind of like, yeah, trying to find the answer, and then you always bring that, like, appreciate the moment and think about like actually don't think too much about
Mm.
it. Think just enough to kind of like keep going, but then um, kind of tone it down so you can enjoy life and yeah, keep your mental health in a nice state.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your focus on like staying on it. Like I feel like Mike, you're always somebody that's like
Comes at a cost.
you're
Be
always
very
somebody
frank.
that's like really like really thoughtful about how your like long-term plan is and how to get there. You're always very like goal driven, which I really respect. Um and I feel like you gotta find a middle point at between like um between not worrying about the future versus over worrying about the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like as long as we're working hard, um then you just gotta trust Jesus to take the wheel sometimes.
Oh well. I mean, that's all great. I think we've really unpacked the topic of kind of choosing a direction and making decisions in life. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ping a message to this guy. He'll enlighten you even more. Um, what I did want to talk about as well was obviously since you've started your apprenticeship, you had to balance out university and work. Um, Based on your experience, A, how did you find the whole program overall? Would it be something that you recommend? In terms of like as a concept, apprenticeship, trying to balance university and work. And then second question, which part of it did you find more useful? The university part of it or the experience part of it? Doesn't have to be black or white, by the way.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed my apprenticeship. Even though I think like the first 2 years were quite affected by COVID. Like when I started my apprenticeship, I think it was like September 2020, and we were going through, I think, a pretty rough patch of COVID in the UK at that point. So I didn't actually have my first like in-person day in the office until 6 months in, or in like in-person day at uni until 6 months in, so like March 2021. But that was pretty tough. Like doing everything from home remotely, that was pretty tough. Um, but like, but I still found it pretty interesting and really enjoyed the work and my course. But I'd say I got like a lot more fun when we finally finished COVID, and then I could go into the office every day and going to uni every day. It was hard trying to balance the two. Not gonna lie, like working and also studying at the same time. It was hard because
Yeah.
like you know th- uh the company was obviously expects you to be there working when you're not at university. So um when you are at university, there's that extra pressure of like, you need to get all your work done. Because if you don't, then like you can't do that when you're at work. It's work is for like working on like projects that the team has and things like that. So you have to be like extra careful about planning your time. Um, that did mean that some of the like I didn't fully get to enjoy my university life as someone who maybe would have gone to university full time. But I feel like for me, I would if I gone back, I would have done the same like degree apprenticeship again. Because what I did miss out on university, I feel like um working and having that part of my life was I genuinely really enjoyed. So so yeah, I think I would recommend it to to anybody that's considering. I can only speak for engineering, um, but yeah, I would recommend like the degree apprenticeship program, kind of pathway over a conventional university to a lot of people, because at the end of the day, I feel like engineering is one of those things where we do a lot of things. We build something, we run it, does not work the first time, it's okay, it blows up, it's fine. We go back, we retry again. So that like practical element of like error, trial and error, is something that the like apprenticeship program really emphasizes. And like learning by doing instead of like reading textbooks
Yeah.
is something that I truly believe in. And that is how I learned most of the engineering skills that throughout my apprenticeship, and even to this day, like working full time, it's most of the stuff I'm learning every day, it's just done by making mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I would, yeah. I mean, again, there are different opinions on what's better, but I would say in this day and age, based on my experience is much sought after. And yeah, I if I were to rank it, I would probably even say like if you can get a placement year, so like a sandwich course,
Yeah.
that would be like probably a perfect degree to
Hmm.
follow.
Hmm.
Obviously depending on how early do you want to start, because I know you can start apprenticeships quite early, can you not?
Yeah, I
So
think
like
some
GCSE,
apprenticeships you can start like straight after GCSEs,
yeah.
um
So
which I didn't know about.
yeah, depending on how exactly do you want to go about it, but if you are thinking about, oh, how do I integrate work experience, I think placement is a great opportunity, because I definitely underestimated it when I was kind of choosing my courses and trying to shape my university experience. And again, you can say just the way things worked out in terms of the markets and COVID and job kind of opportunities available, but yeah, it did kind of bite me back. The fact that I didn't have experience and I couldn't rely on it when coming into the job market kind of fully. That just meant I had to work a bit extra to find that relevant experience so I can look a bit more attractive on my resume.
Yeah. I think it's comparing, like, how should I put this? I feel like if there's multiple ways, there is no correct way of getting to an end goal, really. Like, whether, like, I feel like if I gone to full-time university and did like a computer science degree, I would have been fine as well. Um it just so happens that, I discovered this degree apprenticeship program back in like 2019, 2020, that I applied. But honestly, it's like, if I feel like if I've gone back and did like a full-time degree, 3-year computer science degree, it would have worked out as well. And I think for me, because I was interested in software engineering and more practical aspect of it and going into industry, that was like the degree apprenticeship was the right choice. But I feel like maybe for someone that's like more theoretically, more into theories and less the practical side, maybe like full-time degree would have done them better than a like a degree apprenticeship.
That's true. Yeah.
Because, like, I think, like, theory wise, it will be probably better if you like did
Yeah.
like a full-time degree, master's, maybe a PhD. Like, if you really want to like go deep into research. um Whereas for me, it's like, I just want to build applications, build tools. Like, I didn't really care about like,
The
well, I don't
hands-on
really, yeah, is that,
element.
I
Yeah.
don't really care about, like, finding the next crazy fast algorithm, or innovation. Obviously that's extremely important, but I'm more about like building something practical that people can use.
Yeah. No, nice. No, it's a very good call out. And I guess that's why, yeah, I enjoy having these discussions because, like,
Mm.
obviously, I'm coming with a sometimes quite a hot view and very definitive answer, despite my open mindset.
Hmm.
But I do appreciate when yeah, there is another view that can kind of ground me a bit.
Hmm.
So that was definitely interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I do appreciate like your view as well. It's I think, like, especially, I'm not very familiar with like the business and econ degrees side of the world, because when I was at uni, it was like straight into the engineering building, and then straight back out to do like go to library and do work. So I never really had that, and especially because I was only there for 2 days a week, um, I didn't really have that, opportunity to meet a lot of people from different courses. So yeah, I think, it's interesting definitely to hear about other people's experiences as well, because sometimes when you're like just hanging out with like people on your course, it can get a bit you can get a bit your thinking can get a bit shoehorned into just that, like, engineer's way of thinking. So it's definitely interesting.
so what I hear is basically, um, you would pretty much recommend apprenticeship to someone who's like want to figure out stuff, doesn't necessarily have doesn't necessarily want to go straight into uni and do like just a degree without no like breaks, um, and then eventually, yeah, having that experience also helps you to understand, depending on the subject that you want to study, helps you understand the how the thing works without like without the theory. So once you get onto the ground.
I think, like, not necessarily like in like, I wouldn't recommend like doing an apprenticeship to figure things out. Like, it's a good, like, to figure things out. I feel like you have to do many things, right? Like, because when I applied for the apprenticeship, I knew I wanted to do engineering because I took a gap year and worked at a tech company. So that's how I knew I wanted to do engineering. And because I knew I wanted to do engineering, I did an apprenticeship.
Okay.
But to know I want to do like software engineering, and I think it really came from like my gap year experience of working at a tech startup. So, to your point, I think I would more recommend like a gap year
Hmm.
after school to a lot of people, because I feel like we're always in a rush to finish A levels, finish high school, and then go to the next stage of our education, when that's not necessarily like the best step for everybody. So, as we alluded to earlier, we're we're still extremely young when we finish school. So I feel like there is no rush to rush into your next stage, even though, I remember like at school, there was definitely
Yeah.
like our career advisors were like, oh, you should be going to this university, doing that course,
Hmm.
immediately after you finish school. But in reality, I feel like taking a year out or 2 years out is not a bad idea. If that means that, you try 100 different things, you travel to a few countries, do a few different things, explore the world a little bit,
Yeah.
do a few odd jobs here and there to figure out, what you're interested in, to then commit to what you want to do. Um, I think that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea.
Okay. No, that's yeah. I think that's where I was trying to get, but yeah. So it's not just the apprenticeship; it's also like how do you approach the apprenticeship? So before that you need to
Yeah,
yeah shape it.
just don't rush. No,
Yeah.
there is no rush. There is no rush.
So I think we have pretty decent understanding of now how you got from like the school years. Obviously, I decided not to dig too much into like your childhood and etc. because I feel like that deserves another podcast. But I think the purpose of this kind of this episode was just to uncover this part of your life, and I feel like we really discovered a lot about.
And discover a lot of about your life as well, Mike.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like a lot of stories about back when we were in school. That it's the first time hearing it today as well.
yeah. Well, um, now I want to talk about you today.
Okay.
So obviously, the way you view life, the way you view things has changed. But what would you say are kind of maybe three things that are like core resemblance of you as an individual that carried through the obviously the time? For example, someone might say like my creativity is a core aspect of me. So regardless of me at school, me now, me in the future, I'll always be creative. I'll always think of stuff, how to make something more interesting. Like, what are those three things for of you? Like,
It's a good question, man. I don't know if I can think of three things, but
let's
something
start.
that just yeah, that's sort of one. Why not? Something that came to top of my mind was I feel like I've like even growing up, um to now, even now, it's I've always had an interest in people. Like I love talking to people from different backgrounds, people doing different things, um, and finding out like their story, and who they are, what they do, how they got to where they are now, and things like that. So like our school, if you remember, it was an incredibly diverse school. We had people from all over the world. Um,
Yeah,
and like when we were at school, I always enjoy like talking to people from different countries. Like you were probably one of the first people from Russia that I've met in my life, and that was incredibly interesting to me. And all of our close friends to this day are from different countries, and that I just find incredibly fascinating. And people's view on career, on life, that really varies, um, depending on their upbringing, their culture from the country they come from. But it's interesting to me that we are all connected through, you know, going to the same school, in the middle of like a countryside, and yeah, even to this day, like for going through university, talking to people doing different courses, um, you know, work about to heading to different industries. That was incredibly interesting to me as well, um, because I feel like at school, people we were doing different courses, so I always found it interesting to talk to you. But at university, the time because my time there was quite limited, I really only hung out with like the engineers that I went to class with, and so we were all doing engineering, computer science. But like whenever I had a chance to speak to someone doing like international relations or even like maths, like close to engineering but not quite the same, or like law. I would always try to find out more about what drives them and why they're doing the course that they wanted to do. um and 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 I mean, the company I work at now, it's not just engineers. um so, and it's people that works in like HR operations, the finance side as well. And I find it always fascinating to talk to these people too and find out like why like what path they went on to get into where they are now. And yeah, I feel like that, you know that that interest to talk to people and that openness to talk to people is something that I've carried with me
Yeah,
throughout my life, um,
100%.
and hopefully will carry forward as well.
So we got interest in people, or would you say that's something that spreads into pretty much everything else that you do?
um, yeah, a little bit. I think like that, like the empathy, definitely like kind of goes into quite a few different things that I do, um, and yeah, I think like even another thing maybe is because is I quite enjoy, like from all the time I spend with people. I also need my alone time as well. I feel like that's
Yeah.
something. I mean, I guess it's not uncommon. It's quite common for people to say like, "Oh, I'm an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert." But I feel like for me, I really value my alone time as well as well as spending time with people. Um, Especially now, it's like I've found out that as since last July, when I started working full time, it's like the your free time outside of work is really really limited, really just the weekend. So you really have to be careful about how you spend your time. So I generally try to spend like at least one day with all my friends on the weekends, but also have like another day, the other day to like dedicate to like doing my own things and things I enjoy doing, whether that's like going to Richmond Park for a run or doing some more coding projects. It's just something that really recharges me. um so yeah, it's like finding that balance is really really important. And
Yeah.
like even at school, I feel like I can spend the whole day with my friends, but at the end of the day I gotta have some time to like spend by myself, whether studying, going to the gym, or things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's a constant that hasn't changed. But I don't, it's not necessarily, I guess like a personality trait. But on the topic of like things that hasn't changed, I think that's like that's one of them. And you have to be extra careful, as I said earlier, these days, because like everything's trying to grab your attention, and like when you're working, time just becomes so much more limited. So you have to really be careful.
Cool. I have two more questions
Go for it.
before we finish. It's going to be a rank question again, or like, well, top three type of questions.
Okay.
One being, what would be the three things you would recommend or advise someone who is trying to decide kind of like what to do with their life now? Let's say, given we talked about like schools and education,
Mm.
um, how to how to make that decision on like what job do I want to do? Do I want to stay in here or do I want to move? Like, what would you say the three key ways of thinking that helped you in kind of those tough moments that you were referring to earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, I guess I'm still trying to figure it out, man. It's a
Well,
tough.
that's question answered.
Thank you for watching.
That
We're
was
all
quick.
and listening as well. We're all trying to still figure things out. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I have everything figured out. And and like looking back, it's like I wouldn't. I think everything happened for a reason to lead up to our life now, and
Mhm.
I'm quite grateful for the life that we have now, or at least I have now. And so I wouldn't say like, I think all the mistakes that I made in the past are good mistakes and ones to learn from. But like if you're at school right now, it's I would say like, I was very stressed at school. I was extremely stressed at school because, like I found like the academics, especially in the A level years, were super challenging. And I still wanted to have like some form of social life at school as well. So finding that balance was, I found, challenging. And a lot of the course knowledge that some of the courses I took did not come naturally to me. So there was definitely like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to like get good grades and things like that. But I'd say like, just, I shouldn't have stressed that much. And you know I think I should have believed that things would have worked out okay, as long as I was like trying my hardest. um because don't get me wrong, I was working hard. Like, I was stressed, but I was also working hard. um but I feel like I could have done the working hard without stressing about it too much.
Yeah.
um that's easier said than done, because
Yeah.
if you're like working hard and your grades were not the best, like, it's sometimes, it can take a big hit on the ego. And when grades are like kind of really all you're measured against at school, um it can feel a bit deflating if you're like, putting in 110%, but it's like maybe you had a bad day on your exams, that you did not get the best results. Like, it can be deflating. And
Yeah.
can get you down. So like, and it definitely got me quite a few times. So I'd say like, just don't stress too much about it. Don't stress too much about it. It's like, looking back now, it's like I can't even like remember half of the things I learned at A levels. It's not the end of the world. Like, if things don't work out perfectly.
Yeah. No, I think that's almost like a common theme throughout our talk today. It's
Yeah.
about like balancing um worrying and trying to kind of like think about, oh, am I doing a good enough job? And
Yeah.
also kind of giving yourself enough of a breather room and almost like going a bit easy on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that balance is very important, and I do agree with you that
Yeah.
it's quite
And
hard and can be demotivating if you're like, "Ah, am I doing it good enough, or do I need to push a bit?"
yeah, and I think like another point I want to raise, which kind of ties into the point that we just talked about, is I feel like a lot of the pressure came from others around us who were telling us like, hey, you need to get good grades. Hey, you
Yeah,
need to, do this, do that to get into good university. When like, or you shouldn't do this or that to, because that would like harm your grades. And I feel like that is a bit toxic, because it's only other people's view, and at the end of the day, it is your life. um and a good example is, I remember, I'd never, it was like in our final year of school. I never like really did anything creative at school. But our dear friend, I remember one fateful evening, I was struggling over a math problem, from a homework set in my room. And then you and our dear friends Yevgeny and Will just barged into my room and try to convince me to sign up for this dance show that you guys are putting on.
yeah,
And I, at that point, I was like, oh, like, this is gonna take a lot of time. Probably shouldn't do this. I need to focus on my grades, which were not looking so hot at the time. But like, for a spin, I was like, you know what? Like, if I say no to this, I will never get to do this again in my life.
yeah,
So I did say yes. And I tried out dancing with you guys for the first time, and it was honestly really fun. I wouldn't say I'm a great dancer, but it was I think, like, just spending time with you guys doing something that's not studying and something that I've never done before. That was like probably one of the memories I'm gonna remember. Like, I don't remember any of the complex math formulas that I spent hours trying to remember back in A levels. But what I do remember is the hours that we spent in the dance studio rehearsing our moves. And those were some of the best memories I have with school.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are the stuff that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. So yeah, it's like don't tr- don't try to let others tell you how to live your life. Obviously, I'm not saying like don't study or don't do the work,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I feel like you need to find a balance. You need to find a balance to create the memories like what we did at school. Um, and like if you have like perfect grades, but it comes at the cost of like, your mental health, then I don't think it's worth it at all.
Yeah. No, I agree. um, I mean, if I were to just add to this, um, just keep doing things, um, and that can help you um, alleviate some of that stress, but also it can help you discover some of the things about yourself. And this is basically what you're referring to as like, I'm in the middle of this like tough math problem or whatever. How about I just do some dancing for a while, or I go for a walk, or I don't know, just do something different. I think based on stuff that I've experienced and some reading that I've done, it's like changing the scenery, changing your environment can really help you like refresh your mind and then potentially help you solve some of the things you're trying to figure out while you're struggling in one area. So definitely don't stress too much. So like have try to find that balance. But one of the key ways to find that balance would be to try things out. And I'm not saying you have to like do every single sport that exists 7 days a week, but give yourself a challenge. Give yourself something new. Challenge your mind and your body, um, and that will give you that kind of a changing scenery that will help you kind of discharge and maybe say, actually, it was so easy for me to solve this. Maybe I was just looking at the other issue in the wrong way. So, yeah, I feel like it did help me a lot personally.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time, like to this day, when I have like some coding problem at work, it's I spend hours bashing my head against the keyboard. But all it took was like, like a lunch break or going to the gym or something for me to see like the problem from different perspective and figure it out. So yeah, that's good advice right there.
Yeah.
That's good advice. We're back.
So, you might have noticed the lighting changed a bit. It's because it got dark.
High production quality over here.
Yeah. Hopefully this will improve with future episodes. But for now, apologies for not as nice picture as before. Um, so I told you I had two questions.
Mhm.
One, I think you answered very nicely and very comprehensively as well. So thank you. And the second one, I guess to conclude, probably in a very cliche way, but I still wanted to ask you this question. Um, what is one thing, or maybe several things, up to you, that you would like your future self to remember?
Oh man, that's the $1 million question. I think if there's one thing, I think there's you gotta. It's a common theme against like when we were at school as well. It's you don't realize that these are the good old days until the good old days are gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like every I think every moment it's gonna be because I think it's quite it's human nature to always be searching for the next thing, the better thing, the next I don't know, the next job, the next career, the next next whatever. It's like but you oftentimes and I have to like check myself on this all the time. You oftentimes forget that what you have right now it's you have to put into perspective. It's like it's what we have right now is sometimes the already better than what our old selves could ever imagine. Like if I told 16-year-old Mike and Johnny that we would be here, sitting in London, um, recording this podcast in 8 9 years, I think both of us would not believe that we will be here and having gone through everything that we've gone through. Um, so so yeah, that's like the one piece of advice I think you have, like, future if the future me is like somewhere out there, it's I wish that he is grateful of what he has, and appreciative of the people around him, and yeah, like, and and look, it's we our life right now, it's already better than, I feel like, 99% of the human population on Earth. We have a roof over our heads. We have food in the fridge. We don't have bombs falling on top of our heads. So I feel like we have to be grateful for that. And I think it's good to be ambitious and think about the future, and what your goals should be. But you also have to be appreciative of the present. Um, so yeah, that's probably one thing. How about you, man?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think especially you start to appreciate things more when you lose it, they
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
So start appreciating things more while you have it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, if I think back, like, when we were at school, those were, like, even though at the time we were, we may be, like, quite stressed about schoolwork, about homework, about exams, but honestly, looking back, like, those were some of our most stress-free days, right? Like, the fact that we lived quite close, so I can come see you, like, anytime I wanted, and all of our good friends out there as well, um, who were with us at school. But now it's like most of them I'm not able to see as easily anymore, and, like, that really makes me sad, and
Yeah,
you take it for granted at that time, and sometimes it's annoying that so and so keep on coming to find you, but now it's like, even if you want to see this person, they're, like, a different time zone away.
yeah,
So like, back then, I don't think I realized how good we had it, and we didn't have to worry about finding internships or jobs, or having to, like, like, pay rent and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure, like, future us will have our own problems, but hopefully they'll be grateful of what they have at present day as well.
yeah. And sorry, I completely avoided your question. Because you
Sorry, I
did.
think I cut you off a little bit. So yeah, please do shoot.
I did the Uno reverse card, the usual way. Um, I think I would want my future self to be, well, firstly, open minded, to stay open minded, but more importantly, to um, accept that things happen for a reason. And that can mean multiple things. Like you didn't get what you want this year, next year, but you might get it in 2 years, in 3 years. Um, Again, nothing is for certain, and don't take things for granted, which comes back nicely to what
Mm,
you say about like appreciating things and being grateful for it, because you never know when you might lose it. So I'm not obviously what I'm not trying to say is just like completely YOLO your life and just go like
yeah,
I'm going to enjoy everything today.
100%. Yeah.
Be smart about things. Be um, kind of resourceful, but also let's give an anecdote. You're sitting on a sofa, you're
Mhm.
just scrolling reels.
Yeah.
You realize that you haven't called your parents for 2 weeks. You've been busy. Fair enough. You want your break. But also, you don't really have that opportunity to see your family as often as probably someone else would. So use that moment, give a call, ask how they are, Again, it's very case dependent if you do or do not have good relationship with parents. But let's assume that everything is fine. Um, yeah, just give them a call, ask them how are they doing, and then who knows, maybe that will uncover a new part of your relationship with your parents, now not as a child but now as a grown adult, and that can help you foster this relationship even more. So using kind of those opportunities that you have to not just, I'm not going to say waste your time, I'm just going to say to not resourcefully allocate this time, um, and then just appreciate stuff. And yeah, I think that will also lead nicely into what you were saying, that you just need to be grateful for things. So yeah, things happen for a reason, but it's up to you to appreciate things and make sure that whatever happens to you happens for a reason.
Yeah, I think your point about like not getting something or getting rejected from something is a great point. Like, you know, I feel like I'm always of the belief that like as long as you try your best, you know, you can't really control the outcome. So as long as you try your best, that's all you can do. Um, and if it's not meant for you, you get rejected for that internship, you get rejected from this job, or or in my case, back in 29, you get rejected from your dream university. It happens for a reason. It wasn't meant for you. So I think you don't take like don't dwell on your rejections too much. Um, like might be something better happening down the line for you that you cannot imagine at present moment. um so yeah, like I think that's a good bit of advice that you mentioned there. um because it's hard when you're going through it, when you get rejected, when you're being told that you're not good enough for something. But maybe I think like you just got to learn from that. Don't dwell on it too much. Keep on going forward and move on to your next thing. And hopefully, if it was meant for you, it'll come back. But if it's not, then that maybe hopefully the next thing will be even better.
Yeah, nice. I think that's a great conclusion. So yeah, thanks again for coming. I think
Thank you for having me.
we we discussed a lot of stuff, but we've only covered a drop in the ocean of the stuff that we can potentially discuss. But I want to keep it for a next potential episode,
Oh
maybe
wow,
a part two.
we got a
Who
part
knows?
two coming up.
But no, it's been lovely having a chat with you as always.
No, I think it's always nice to have conversations like this. Like, look, we're just two guys in our early 20s that trying to figure out what the hell is going on, right? So like we might be chatting absolute nonsense, but I think it's even so, in 10 years time, we might rewatch this episode, and then be like, oh wow, maybe we did know something, but we'll see.
Yeah. And if you, i.e., me, watching this episode 10 years after, I just want you to know that you did the right thing, that you started. And you guys, actually, if you do want to do something, but you're not sure if things going to work out, etc., just start. Like, just set off and then take it as it goes. Try to be as positive as you can. This is I'm a living example. Like, this podcast has been in the making for 2 years. I've been bragging about that for to so many people. I don't know if it's going to work out or not, but I'm already feeling good from the fact that I've tried it.
No, huge respect, man.
So
Huge respect. Like everyone can talk about doing something, but until they actually do it,
yeah,
it's not gonna become a reality. So I have huge respect for you for trying this out. I'm honored that you asked me to be part of the first episode.
no, it's a pleasure. And on this note, just want to say thank you guys for watching this video. Really appreciate everyone who started watching, who especially finished until this moment. I think it speaks a lot. And yeah, hopefully you found it useful. And yeah, just wanted to say one more thank you. If you could like this video, share, and leave anything you want in the comments, tag a friend, leave a recipe for a nice meal. Either works. And yeah, I will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
And that's a cut.